Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, Sandra Sheffer, host of Racing the Races. I have a guest on today. We'll talk about a few things before they come on. As soon as I see their face, I will add them to the screen so we can get started with this conversation that we're having today. Oh, I see the face popped up. All right. So what I am going to say, I'm going to say a couple of things before our special guest joins us. He was supposed to join us last week, but some scheduling conflicts and confusion on my part. He wasn't able to be here. I'm so excited that he is here to make it today. So we have former County Commissioner Dale Holness that's going to speak on his bid to become the next representative out of CD-20, which is a seat that, is pretty controversial this time just for the number of candidates that are there and some of the people who are there because, the governor is rigging maps and redrawing lines. And so this is like the district is somewhat redrawn, but we still believe that it will remain a black seat, as that's what they call it. That's one of them black jobs that we absolutely want to keep. And we hope that one of the black people running will keep that black job, right? So I am going to bring up Dale Holness right now. I usually tell people that they needed to register to vote by July the 20th in order for them to vote in the primaries. However, that date has come and gone. But you still, if you're registered, you can still request your vote by mail ballots. Those ballots had already started going out. So make sure you vote. You can start voting now if you have your vote by mail. Early voting starts August the 3rd until August the 16th. And when you hear that date, August the 18th, that's actually the last day that you can vote, right? August 18th is the last day you can vote. We want y'all to vote early now. We want y'all to vote at early voting because it also helps the candidates know where they need to put their resources so they can strategize and be more efficient in targeting communities to, when they're with their field and their ground game. Okay, so make sure you request your vote by mail ballot. Start voting, send them out, and early voting August 3rd to August the 16th. And in Broward County, we're awesome. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. anywhere. But on election day, if you wait till the actual 18th to vote, you have to go to the place that's on your ballot. Okay. So I've talked enough and I'm ready to speak to Dale Holness, have him introduce himself to you all. So come on in, y'all, and let me bring him up. How are you?
I'm blessed. Thank God that I'm able to serve the people.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
I am Dale.
Everyone knows you. But go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll start talking about why you're running and then what types of things you are going to be priorities for you in DC. And I want to see, what your thoughts are on these issues. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the Racing the Races audience.
I am Dale Holness, a 51-year resident of District 20. I served as a commissioner in Lauderhill from 2004 until 2010, when I went to the county commission, serving there from 2010 to 2022. As a commissioner in Lauderhill, I created sister city programs, started the Lauderhill Chamber of Commerce, Lauderhill Education A+ Plan, helped to get more residents into home ownership, cleaned up an area that was neglected and blighted, 55th and 56th Avenue, helped people who were on the corner doing things they shouldn't do, get jobs and get training so that we could take them off the corner. And in that area, build new homes. It's been a journey. It was a journey there in Lauderhill. Put together Lauderhill Business Incubator. At the county, I served as vice mayor and then mayor during COVID 2020. There, I expanded the work that I did in Lauderhill, putting together Florida's International Trade and Cultural Expo that won a presidential award in 2019, where we help our local business sell more to the world. I also pushed and changed our procurement process. That's how we buy stuff. And through that process, we move our procurement for small minority women-owned business from 10.25% in 2010 to 2022, 48%. In that year alone, it was $248 million that went to that category. Put in place a juvenile justice system that look at getting citation, civil citation, rather than locking up a kid or someone young for misdemeanor offenses. We also expand that to adult civil citation. And that included if you had a little bit of marijuana, if you petty theft, if they charge you for vagrancy, for loitering, minor offenses that we shouldn't be putting people in jail for and spending almost $200 a night to house them. It's a waste of taxpayers' dollars when we can find alternative ways of helping, or especially young people. And by the way, the people who benefit most, even from the adult civil citation program that I was able to put in place, were people under 30 years old. That means they're young people still developing. And we can't be just locking up our future. We need to ensure that we're empowering them, giving them opportunities to grow. I see your nice hair there. I passed the Crown Act.
Crown Act.
That says if you want to wear locks, if you want to wear dreads, if you want to braid, if you want to wear afro, you can't be discriminated against in Broward County and get away with it, because there's a law that says if they discriminate against you, you can take them to court and win. Put more money into affordable housing during my time, and it continues now than ever before. That's a big part of what we must do. Put more money into economic development. Look at areas that have been left out and left behind, like the zip codes with the highest poverty, highest unemployment, and put more resources and money there to create balance. And in fact, that's where a lot of people of color live, Black folks. We have a lower poverty rate in Broward County, according to a study done by FIU a few years ago, at 15% for Black folks compared to Miami-Dade at 24+%, Palm Beach at over 20%. So we are much lower, but not good enough, because we shouldn't have that many people living in poverty. The Alice report done by United Way show that 48% of the people who live in the state of Florida either live paycheck to paycheck or in poverty. It's disgusting for us to even think about that in the wealthiest country in the world, that we have 13% of our population in the state living in poverty, and another 34% that work and can't make ends meet. That's why I'm working to get to the U.S. Congress, working for you, to build community, to build prosperity for all.
There's a couple things we're going to talk about, and let's just talk about the housing one first, right? Because that was the last thing that you said that kind of made me be like, ooh, like what's affordable housing? I do believe that is something that's in your purview, because I think there's a housing bill that just went through Congress right now that the president was threatening to veto and all of these things. It was a bipartisan bill. When I hear this word affordable housing, tell me what that sounds like to a person that's running for office that's trying to get the confidence of voters. What is affordable housing?
So it's based on income within the area, and for different people it's different, of course, but when you look at it, there are different tiers. They have a low level, a mid-level, and of course a higher level. Those percentages are calculated based on the cost of housing and the income within the area. So affordable housing now would be anything under $400,000 per year, a little over $400,000 in price, and probably about less than $2,000 a month for rent. Now, that's still a lot for many people. So we have to do more to ensure that we create more home ownership. Is a big piece of what we must do, because when you own your own home, other than the taxes and insurance going up, you're okay. You can probably manage that a little bit more than a landlord coming to you and say, look, rent's gone up. You got to pay 50% more or double the rent. It is something that we must create, and also it creates wealth. And in America today, based on data, only 46% of Black folks own their own home compared to 76% of whites. There's a huge disparity. And that corresponds also to the fact that Black household wealth is 1/10 of white household wealth. That's a big deal. So in many of our communities that have large minority population, home ownership rate is very low. We must increase that, because it brings stability also to those communities and those neighborhoods. When people own their own home, they will take better care of their own neighborhood, and they will stay there even longer.
Yeah, so that's one thing. I hit a 400,000 price tag, and I was like, I bought my house back in 2001, and it wasn't $400,000. But okay, I understand it. I wonder what you get for $400,000 these days. But that's a different part of the conversation, unless that's something you want to address.
So I shouldn't tell you about when I was a kid, a young 22-year-old. I bought my house for $32,000.
Listen, my mom bought hers for 15. Okay, my mother bought her duplex for 15,000 back in like 1980 or something like that, and that was in Miami. So so that's definitely something. And then imagine, right? So when you talk about home ownership as a way that people build wealth, it is for sure, right? Imagine you bought a house for $15,000 in 1980. Those houses in those areas are worth like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars right now.
The house I'm talking about is now worth about $300,000.
Exactly. And hopefully you don't still have a mortgage on a house that was $30,000 30 years ago. But I
don't own it anymore. I own other stuff. but it helped me.
Yes.
It helped me tremendously. The greatest investment, largest investment that Americans made on average is a home that they live in. And that home can be utilized to take a loan on, to start a business, to send the kids to school. And if there's an emergency, you can take the equity out and use it for. So it's a very powerful thing. And that's why, by the way, that's why I got in a real estate business as a real estate broker. After being at McDonald's for several years, I said, you know what? Wealth is created when you own your own and when you have your own business. Yeah. And I got into real estate business as a result to ensure that our people own more. And we've done pretty well in helping thousands of people own their own home.
Yeah, and that's definitely important. It's something that when they talk about generational wealth, something that you can leave to your children, because the people that I know, their parents, when they passed on and they left them their home or they left a home to the grandchildren, it's an amazing thing that if you come in and you don't have that cost of, like you said, the fluctuating rent where the landlord could just decide they want to charge you more, but you have a home that you're paying taxes and insurance on, and the amount is more reasonable, because apparently my mortgage is less than a bunch of my friends' rent, but
and you probably live in a better place than they live. So
I'm not judging.
so let me point to what can be done in the U.S. Congress.
Yes,
we need to increase the housing vouchers that exist. That's called Section 8. It's now called choice housing vouchers. And it's choice because you can choose to live wherever you want to live. If you have one of those, you can actually live in West End if you can find an owner to rent to you at the market rate for that area, not based on a set amount somewhere else. So that's a big piece of what we need to do. Since 2017, we haven't increased those vouchers. That's what many seniors utilize to stay in a home someplace. Too many of our people are homeless because there's a huge waiting list for those vouchers to come out. We need to increase the number of them, but there are other things we can do with that choice housing voucher. One, we can use it for home ownership, and it's not been done, and we need to change the laws and the rules as to how it's done. Some housing authority are utilizing it, but minimally, because once they get rid of once those choice vouchers go to home ownership, then they don't get regular fees out of it anymore. So we got to make sure that there's an incentive for them to allow for home ownership with it. If we can subsidize someone to pay landlord rent, why not subsidize them to own their own home? Okay, that's the same money. Okay, doesn't need to change. So that's a big piece of what we must do to increase that. The other thing we need to do when we increase these numbers, we need to dedicate a certain percentage of those increased vouchers for new housing units, because supply and demand is the capitalist way of things happening, right? If you have high supply and the demand is low, then price goes down. If you have low supply and high demand, the costs go up. So that's another piece of what I think we can directly do within the U.S. Congress and partner with our cities or counties to ensure that money stretch even further.
Yeah, and that's important too. And I will. We've talked a lot about housing, but I do want to make one more point. Is there opportunity for abuse in this Section 8 voucher housing program that you're talking about? Because I'm not 100% familiar with it, but it appears that sometimes when a person gets Section 8, they can pass it on to other family members in the home. So it's one of those things that, is that not how that operates?
They can't.
No? Okay.
They can't pass it on. It's very strict.
Okay.
You're talking about New York stuff now in rent control.
Okay.
That's a different situation where if you get a rent control unit, you can stay there and pass it to the next person, even after that person passes. And there's some issues with that too, but people get away with it.
Okay.
But you can't do that with the housing voucher. It's renewed every year. So that person have to sign and go through the process each year to ensure that it's the actual person that is receiving the benefit that's actually living in the unit.
Okay. All right. So housing is an issue. You have a plan on how to increase home ownership and make it more affordable for people. Now, so the other thing I want to talk about is immigration, because apparently, there's a judge in, I believe, Massachusetts that said that the administration cannot end TPS or the work authorization for these folks, because I believe all of that was supposed to end on Friday. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but are you planning on taking any positions on immigration or working?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us what your thoughts are on immigration.
I came on just, and maybe it's still going on. I was on another call just before this talking about that very issue with Florida Immigrant Coalition, Family Action Network Movement was on there, members of ACLU. There's a large Catholic Charities was represented, a huge contingency of different entities working on this very issue. Now, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump can do what this crazy nasty thing that he's doing to immigrants. This judge's ruling, we got to see whether it's appealed or what happened with that. But it could probably slow down the process a little bit at this point in time. Now, we still have to mobilize to get things done. Right now, the hot burning issue on immigration is Haitian TPS, temporary protected status for the Haitian people. Mm-hmm. The conditions in Haiti is horrible. It's horrific. For this administration to send people back to a country where they say to Americans, you don't go near there, because if you go, you may die. Are we sending people back to there? Is that a humane thing to do? Now, temporary protective status, people say, well, it's supposed to be temporary. But understand this, that the law really says that so long as the condition that brought this about still exists in that country, it can continue. And for many countries, they have continued for many, 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 many more years than it has been in place for the Haitian people. So I am at the forefront of that. I've been in the marches. I've been on the streets. I've been on the Zoom calls. I've been everywhere. In fact, just now we talked about what happens if they start these deportation. And if these folks that are here working hard, 2-3 jobs sometimes, don't have a job, we got to figure out how we help them. There's going to be a humanitarian crisis if we don't start planning now. That means our churches and our nonprofits and everybody now will have to do two things at the same time: fight to change what Donald Trump has done, but also at the same time put measures in place where we can be charitable to our neighbors who will be suffering from not being able to work, to provide for themselves and their families. Now, the other side of it is get the Senate. We need 60 senators to co-sponsor a bill. I think it's 2414, the number 4814, to grant temporary protective status continuance for another 3 years for the Haitian people.
I think Ayanna Presley is the one that's putting that one forward, and it made it through the House, right?
Yeah, it was put through the House on a discharge petition. That means we had a majority of members of the House who forced the bill on the floor, and it got passed with some Republican help, a minimal amount. We now have 47 Democrats in the House. More than half of them have already agreed to co-sponsor. 19 more need to co-sponsor so that we can get all the Democrats on board. And then we're going to need another 13 Republicans. Senator Moody from Florida, Senator Scott, if you got any connections to them, call them out. The other thing that we talked about on the phone call was the folks who benefit from this labor force, like the agricultural business, that provide for your food in your house. And if they're not there to pick the crops, your strawberry, you don't have no strawberry. You don't have no tomatoes. Okay, you don't have no apples. And then if you don't have that, price is going to go up higher than you have now. So all Americans benefit from the 300,000 plus Haitians that are here in this country as TPS holders. We now need to get the business community engaged for them to put pressure on Trump, because Trump don't like folks like you and me too much, but the people with money, if he can make some more from them, he can listen to that. So we got to get them involved and engaged also. The Walmart, the Amazon, the hoteliers, the hospitals where many of our Haitian brothers and sisters that are here in temporary protective status work. And further, you asked me about immigration, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes, if I may, please.
Take the time. Take the time.
We must pass comprehensive immigration reform. Mm-hmm. Marco Rubio put it forward when Obama was president, and the Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan group, said that it would grow America's economy by $1.1 trillion. If we're growing the economy by that much, does every American benefit? Absolutely it does. And understand this also, that TPS holders and DACA recipients are no longer undocumented. They have documentation. They've been fingerprinted. They've been given a social security number. They're working. They're going to school. We know exactly where they are and what they do. And the notion that immigrants are likely to be criminal, nonsense. American-born people are more likely to be criminals than foreign-born people.
We're not firing shots at Americans, but I'm
talking to Trump. I'm talking to Trump that says that that's the case. It's not the case.
It's not the case.
Too many people take that and believe it. That's not true at all.
It's not true at all, particularly because they have to be fingerprinted every 18 months. There's a background check that's done every 18 months on those individuals. And if they have one felony conviction, they lose that status.
They're gone.
And if they have two misdemeanor status conviction, I think it's 3, it may be 2 or 3 misdemeanors, they lose that status. So the idea of, say that again?
And they're deported.
Yeah, and they can be deported because they lose that status, particularly if that was the only way that they were able to remain in the United States without being removed. They get deported. So none of them are felons. Like that idea that any of them are felons, that's absolutely not true, because the minute you have a felony conviction, they revoke the status and you cannot be a felon with TPS.
So let me say something else, especially on the issue of Haiti for temporary protective status. In my mind, no other country deserves or help more than Haiti. And why, Wholeness, would you say something like that? I say it this because of this. One, when American forces were pinned with their backs to the seas in Savannah, Georgia, had the Haitian forces not come and help, we would have lost that battle, and who knows where that war would have turned. So there's a huge gratitude that we should owe, and there's monuments to that in Savannah. I'm not making the story up, people.
Yeah, that's true.
You look also at all are part of 15 United States. 15, all are part of it. Was given to us by Napoleon and France after the Haitian Revolution because they were fearful that the people of Haiti who would liberate themselves would come and liberate these lands and take it away from France. So they gave it to America, 15 cents an acre. That's just to give you something. Mm-hmm. All right. That is not just Louisiana. Parts of Kansas.
It was called a Louisiana Purchase. That's what the whole territory was called, and it was divided up into different states. Yeah.
Parts of 15, all are part of 15 states in the United States. The whole middle of the country, practically, what we call the Midwest now, goes all the way up to Idaho and to Wyoming and that area. Now, Chicago was founded by a Haitian. Did those folks know that? If you live in Chicago?
I went to Chicago, yeah. So I lived in Chicago, yeah,
So you know that.
Yes, I do.
And the fact is this, that the Haitian people have always contributed to America's well-being. Always. We have not done the right thing too many times. We occupied the country from 1915 to 1934, 19 years. In fact, we even went in their bank and took their gold out. That's not repaying. And then we backed France for having them pay for their freedom and reparations until about 1940 something. All the money they made, the first money they made went to France.
I think that was about 100 years of repayment, because it was like hundreds of $1 million for the loss of their labor.
What could have done with that money? What could the Haitian people with that? Maybe they wouldn't be in this mess, because they would have better schools, better roads, better systems in place. So we've helped now it's time for us to do something that's good and help them. And I'm on this issue of Haiti, so I'm going to roll and rumble and continue, if you allow me, without shutting me off. We need to do something beyond just the TPS program here. We have to help the country itself to rebuild.
But let me just say, and especially when it comes to TPS, Haiti somehow is the country that they talk about the most, because maybe it's easy to hate Haiti, but Haiti is not the only country that's being impacted by this. There's Syria, there's Burma, there's Sudan, there's Somalia. Yemen. All of these countries, also Yemen, these countries also had temporary protected status that they're losing as a result of the decisions that are being made. So it's not only just Haiti and Haitians that are being impacted, it's a lot of other nations. And beyond that, right? So the strict immigration policy of this all enforcement and picking up people, it again is also not only impacting Haitian nationals. I practice in the immigration law space, and I'm telling you, our brothers and sisters in the Latino community are getting picked up and stopped just by walking out of a coffee shop. We had I was in a hearing the other day, and police, and in the report it said the police officer said they saw the occupants of the vehicle and they looked undocumented. That's what it said. The occupants of the vehicle looked undocumented, and so they pulled over the vehicle, and I mean it did turn out that, but the reality is like they actually weren't undocumented, because they all had work authorization and they all had applications that were pending with immigration. But because these people don't understand, they said they were undocumented, they detained them. And so listen, this is not only happening to Haitian nationals and people that appear Black. This is our Latino brothers and sisters from across Central South America are being stopped doing absolutely nothing that's in violation of any laws, and they're finding themselves being detained and being removed, deported, regardless of the fact that they have American citizen children, American citizen spouses, and that's the comprehensive immigration reform would probably address some of those issues. But don't think that this is something that's only impacted Haitian people. It is not.
So when you look at that, that's racial profiling.
Absolutely.
And I'll go to the other part of what I want to talk about. And there's so much I can talk about. We could go on for hours. That we need to do as a country, as a nation, and as community. When you look at our criminal justice system, it's not fair. And people might say, well, it is. But let me give you a couple of data points that over the years I've worked with at the county. When I put the civil citation program in place, what I found is this, that if in Broward County, by the way, 74% of the young people who get arrested are Black. 74%, 12% white, 14% Hispanic. That's insane. It's over enforcement of policing on certain communities. That's exactly what that is.
And that's grace being given to some and not to others.
Absolutely.
Because it's not that, because young folks, the behavior is the behavior, right? So that's right. Like the behavior is being interpreted in different ways, and one's given grace and the other one is not. Absolutely.
So civil citation allow for a ticket to be given for minor offensive, misdemeanor offenses, petty theft, loitering, vagrancy, a little bit of weed in your possession. Those things shouldn't put someone in jail where we're paying almost $200 a night for them to stay there, and let them not be productive, especially young people who make mistakes. I mean, when it comes to weed, Obama said he smoked something, and Clinton didn't want to admit it. He said he didn't inhale.
He didn't inhale.
crazy stuff, right? But it doesn't make sense. We're spending $400+ million per year on the jails in Broward County. How much are we spending?
It's a business. It's a
It is
business.
crazy. It's crazy. So putting immigration reform in place is all, along with criminal justice reform, is important. Criminal justice reform under Obama, he did studies that showed that if we were to put the best practices in place, we could have less people in our prisons. We could reduce recidivism. We could create a more productive population that can create prosperity for themselves rather than become dependents of taxpayers. That's a benefit to all Americans if we put that in place. So the civil citation in Broward County has been very successful. It reduces recidivism. It has a component of restorative justice, where if you wrong someone, you work to make it right, which is where we ought to be. That's what we should be doing more of. We're a country doesn't have the largest population, but we should be the most advanced, and we have more people in our prisons than any other country.
More than like several countries put together.
Yes.
Probably like the next 9 countries put together. We have more people in our criminal justice system than them.
That doesn't make sense at all.
None whatsoever.
We're reducing our productivity and reducing our competitiveness in this global economy. And that takes me to the taxation system. We have a tax system that benefits the wealthiest Americans and not those who have the greatest need, not the people who work every day to make ends meet, that create profits for mega corporation and they don't share in the prosperity. We must change that. The tax code need to change. That tax code need to change so we can rebuild America's middle class, because that's the driver of the economic uplift for us.
How is that change? What does that change look like?
Okay,
yeah,
so good.
What does that change look like?
So the first thing we do, we must reverse this big, ugly, nasty bill that the Republicans and Trump passed. Nothing beautiful about it. I'm sorry, I almost use a word that maybe I shouldn't. It's darn ugly. Now, what we must do is this. What we must do is reverse it. And what does that look like? It means that we take the money that we gave to the wealthiest people and invest it in the neediest communities and those who are workers working to produce the wealth of our country. Bill Clinton did that when he got to office in 92 and balanced the budget, paid down the debt, and create economic growth until Bush came along and messed it up.
Yeah, and it has not been the same since.
You understand?
Yeah, he left with a surplus. He left with money. The country had money then.
There was a budget.
And that was just in 2000.
That was budget. There was a budget surplus that was paying down the debt that we have now. Our debt, $30-something trillion. Our debt is higher than our gross domestic product. That's and you know what we tell developing countries if they have that? We can't lend you. You can't get no money. And
you're a credit risk.
We're going to manage your money for you and tell you what you can and can't do. Okay.
They're going to bring in a receivership.
And I'm going to tell you something here. This is really a serious issue.
It is.
Because if our debt holders, Saudi Arabia, Japan, China, decide to call those notes in, interest rate would go through the roof. We'd be in deep, deep trouble. So we have to work to balance that. And when we give all this money to the trillionaire and billionaires, it's causing the future generation to be burdened with this debt.
No, the current generation is burdened. Like we feel it now. We feel it absolutely right now, right? Yeah. Particularly those in the middle, because when we talk about, especially like Miami, I saw something that we're like the most expensive city to live in now, like more than New York and some of the more.
That's crazy.
That's crazy because our income is nothing close to anybody in New York. I have friends who work in New York and they all make more money than me. The paralegals there make more money than me as a lawyer. So we should not be paying more of anything than anyone that lives in New York City. And so even when a person has a 6-figure salary here, when you're paying 28 to 32% of your income and taxes between FICA, Social Security, this, that, and the third, you're really not making 6 figures, right? And then you're paying rent and whatever mortgages. It's like your salary looks good on paper, but the reality of it is that you that paycheck to paycheck that you're talking about. And that's not just people low level, low skilled workers. That is people with college education, degrees, multiple degrees that are finding themselves in these situations where it's just unaffordable to just live here unless you're in a multi-generational home or you're having, additional income that's supporting the household.
Listen, the Alice report done by United Way showed that 13% of the people in the state of Florida live in poverty. That's $15,900 or less per year. And another 34% work and can't make ends meet at the end of the month. If they have a car repair bill, a medical bill, they're going to have to go pawn something, take a payday loan, and get even further in crisis. That's not what we should be having in the wealthiest country in the world. And by the way, the groups of those that make over $100,000 a year that live within that range of paycheck to paycheck because they have children. So reforming the tax code would also mean that we increase the child tax credit, the early income child tax credit, and make it permanent. When we had it at a higher level, we reduced the number of people in poverty by, I think it was like 15%, less people were in poverty. Why are we giving all this money to the wealthiest people? When we look at what was done with balancing the budget under Clinton, because people had more money to spend that were working people and lower income people and those on fixed income, the economy grew. That's what we ought to be doing. And guess what will happen? If the economy grew, the wealthy people even get more money.
Yeah, because there's no trickle-down economics, right? Remember when Reagan was talking about trickle-down economics, give it to the top and then it's going to make its way down to the bottom? That does not happen. When it goes to the top, it stays there and they don't redistribute it, right? So, but like you said, if it's the middle-class folks, they're going to go on an extra vacation and give some money to Disney. They will buy, like a better brand shoes. They will buy, food. They're going to go out and spend, and the money does go back, but at least the people have some sort of relief. So that whole idea of like, oh, let's give them the tax break and then it'll trickle down to the rest, that just doesn't happen. I
remember a Republican who actually became president, Bush Sr., said it was voodoo economics.
Voodoo economics, yeah.
Now, it doesn't make any sense. And the reason this occurs is because people like Elon Musk put a lot of money in campaigns to put the people who do their bidding for them in office. Money matters. I mean, in this race, I have at the end of the second quarter, 300,000+ in the bank. The other candidate who came into this race from somewhere else had $2.8 million. Who are you going to answer to if they put you in office? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to look at that dynamic and see, and folks out there who don't vote and say it don't matter.
That matters.
Because you don't vote is why you're struggling so much, why so many Americans, you're not paying attention. Listen, the tax code is a huge issue. That's how you control where the money goes. Congress control the purse string.
Everyone should pay their fair share, because I mean, for someone to have like $1 trillion and them not have to pay taxes is insane. If you got $700 million and for you not to pay taxes, that's insane. There's no lifestyle change if you have to pay your percentage in taxes. Okay, maybe you might drop in the Forbes list, but everybody gonna drop in the Forbes list because all of y'all are paying taxes, so probably your number is going to stay the same. So that whole idea that those individuals don't have to pay taxes is absolutely bizarre. And hopefully there is some sort of, that's why I think it's important for just regular folks to actually make it to Congress. What does regular folks mean? I'm talking about really working class people that understand the way that normal ain't a good word, that just everyday American lives, right? Those that have to go to work, those that are taking care of their parents, those that have childcare issues, those that have children. We need more of that representation in office. And I think even when some of those people become multimillionaires, it's time for them to go, right? Because now you're losing touch and your interests may be different because you're trying to protect your wealth also, instead of the people who you said that you were going there to represent, right? So I do have an issue with, folks going in broke and leaving, getting millions of dollars and then getting big donations, because you can't tell me you're unbought and unbossed when you're taking $1 million donations and hundreds of thousands of dollars from a PAC. Ain't nobody making that kind of investment without getting some sort of return on that investment. That's just how business people operate. But that's probably not what you want to spend your time talking about. There's a question in the chat. There's some comments in there that we're not even going to engage, but there is a question which was on the list that I definitely want to talk about, is that what is your position on the Medicare for all, in some sort of like, some basically Medicare for all, just like Mass Health, that was very successful in the state of Massachusetts, that the Republican Romney had pushed forward. Like, what are your thoughts on some sort of Medicare for all policy?
We must do it. It's in the best interest of all Americans. When someone doesn't have health care or health insurance, they go to the emergency room. It costs us more. And here in Broward County, Memorial Health, Broward Health, are hospitals that cannot refuse someone.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who pays for it? The taxpayers. Property taxpayers pay the bill. We pay more when you don't have health insurance for you to go to the emergency room, rather than seeing a primary care physician that can help you prevent hospitalization. That's what we must do. There's not even really any debate at all about it. We must get there, and get there rapidly. This big, ugly, nasty bill cut back and support for the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. They cut the money back to help families have insurance. It's evil. They cut back on Medicare. That's evil. They cut back on SNAP, food stamps, that goes to families with children that are hungry. They cut and seniors who are on fixed income. That it doesn't make sense at all. And then they give you $1 trillion tax trust.
But those are people that voted against their interests, right? Because in order for that to have happened, people had to vote for the individuals that made those types of decisions. So how do we get people to not vote against their interests?
So a big piece of it is education, okay? And I can tell you this, the reality has set in for many of these folks already, okay? And Trump has used every divisive tactics to get folks to vote against their own best interests. He demonized immigrants. He put ethnic groups in different categories and separate them and elevate some and makes them feel it. And then folks vote for him, and he act macho, and some men think, hey, that's the way to do it. It's a big deal of education. And let me tell you what has already occurred. In the state of Florida, there's a swing away from Republicans and Trump by an average 17% of the voters since he got to office. In House District 1, where Matt Gaetz held that over in the Pensacola area, it went 22% against them in the special election last year. That's Florida, U.S. House District. In U.S. House District 6 in the Daytona Beach area, it went 16% away from them in a special election last year. In this year's special election, Florida House District 87, it went 17% away from them. In Miami, the mayor is now a Democrat after 30 years. In Boca Raton, the mayor is a Democrat after 30 years. So people have already realized that they didn't vote their best interest. And they use all kind of stuff to make you vote against your interest. They use the social issues of being gay, not being gay, and all kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, they're taking food out of your children's mouth. They're taking money away from education. Listen, this man wants to kill the Department of Education.
I mean, isn't it the WWE lady that's the Secretary of Education? Like, that was already a bad sign. So I don't understand.
We're in a global economy. We have to prepare for global competition against China and other countries. And we must build from the age of birth to educate. Early childhood education is a big piece. My sister is a big time early childhood education guru in New York, and she gave me data and statistic that shows that if you don't do it early, people struggle in later life to learn. And there was a point in time when they used third grade level achievement by our students to determine number of prison beds for the
think
future.
they still do that. Yeah,
Huh?
because I think they still do that because from when you start school to third grade, you're learning to read, and after third grade, you're reading to learn. So you're supposed to have all those fundamentals because by the time you get to third grade, they're not teaching you how to read anymore. You're just reading to learn the information. So, and that, that's unfortunate that they would take that data and use it to build the prison cells as opposed to like, oh wow,
Invest in more.
we see where the gap is. Let's try to fill that gap and see if we can, change this future that these children would have by implementing, different services. Because it's more expensive to have someone in a detention facility and in a prison than it is to send them to school. So, right, Absolutely. The jails get more money per person than schools get per student.
Isn't that insane?
Ain't that something?
That's insanity.
Ain't that something? Yeah.
So part of what I talked about earlier was adjusting the earned child tax credit for people who have children. We must expand that and increase the numbers so that families with young children get the support they need. Right now, many young people are not having children because they can't afford to.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, our birth rate has declined. And when we look at Greece and Portugal and Spain, when their birth rate declined and they didn't have replacement to put people in the labor force, their economy pretty much collapsed. If we don't do something about it, while the immigration issue is there to provide labor, young people are not being born, children are not being born, people on Social Security, guess what? If people are not working to pay into the Social Security pool, the benefits are not going to be there.
They're trying to privatize that anyway. They turned Social Security into the boogeyman. So will they even be Social Security when these kids grow up?
Well, listen, in Congress, I'm not going to allow that to happen because here's the deal. You pay Social Security while you're working. You're a lawyer. So it's a contract. You take my money and you promise me something, then you owe me. Okay.
They're gonna be like, we ain't got it. We broke. So it's gone. It went to Iran and the Straits of Hormuz. We ain't got no money for you.
The government can't declare bankruptcy. So we gotta again tax people crazy. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we're giving away the money that we could use now to shore those things up to the wealthiest people. $1 trillion tax cut doesn't make sense at all for people. So listen, you hearing me?
$1 trillion doesn't make sense. The fact that someone's worth $1 trillion don't make sense. But I no hater. It just don't make sense.
We giving tax cut to people who got so much money already they can't ever spend it in their lifetime.
Never.
And here's the crazy thing: they can't take it to the grave with them.
Nope. My brother says that I never see a U-Haul following a Hertz. So what are they doing?
It makes no sense at all. So. Yeah. So there's a lot that we must do to help. Now, there's a thing called opportunity zones. There are 30 of them in Broward County. And what the federal government, bipartisan legislation that passed a few years ago, what they say is we're going to bring investments into these areas that have high poverty, high unemployment. But here's what they say. If you have capital gains, and you invest the money in these communities, you don't pay any taxes. But nothing in that legislation says that community need to be lifted up. There's no percentage of employment for that neighborhood. There's no percentage of a goal, not even a goal. There's no percentage of opportunities for the small businesses in that community. We're not saying because we know these issues that exist now, we're going to put more money into early childhood education in these communities. We're not saying we're going to put money into apprenticeship programs. We're not saying we're going to put more money into healthcare for these communities. So I believe that we can get bipartisan support to amend that, to put more investment and put goals in place to help lift these communities up. This is how we end poverty. Because if we help people get opportunities to build themselves and create prosperity for themselves, we're better off for it. There's more productivity happening. The other piece of what we must look to do is increase wages. And that's very complicated. In Broward County, I did it. It was easier in Broward County. In Washington, it's going to be tougher because you got 50 states you got to deal with. All right? In Broward County, I increased the living wage through any person working for the county or any contractor. In Broward County, our living wage is over $19 per hour right now if you work for the county. When I got to the county, the airport workers, especially those doing wheelchair service, were making $5.80 because they're supposed to be tipped. That's not the case anymore at all. They now have a living wage and they have insurance benefits through their union SEIU that I helped to pass that legislation to make sure that happens. We must strengthen the unions in our country. The PRO Act would allow for people to unionize. And here's what happens. Well, you're homeless. Only those in the unions get a benefit. No, when their wages go up, other wages go up as a result of them fighting for better pay for people. We must ensure that the labor that provides the work to create profits for mega corporations prosper from those that labor also. It's a huge deal that we must put in place in our country to lift people up across our lands, and we must sell more of our goods and services to the rest of the world.
I want to make a point, and then I also want to ask a question. So there's an educator that's in the chat that said that that the information that they use the third grade reading scores to predict prison space is not accurate. There's an article that's from readingpartners.org that's been put in the chat that if you want to get any more information on that, but that's something that's been said, but they're saying that that's not accurate information.
Okay, no problem.
So that was on me. I said that too. And then someone's asking about data centers. I'm gonna ask another last labor question, and we got to talk a little bit about voting rights. And we're gonna talk a little bit about voting rights before you go, because that's something that needs to be addressed as opposed to, and then college debt loan forgiveness. So someone says, what is that something that will be in your purview as a member of Congress about how many data centers that they're going to have in the United States? Because apparently those are things that are terrible for the environment. They use up like a lot of water, and they're like just bad. So do you have any positions on all these data centers that are popping up throughout the United States?
So through environmental regulations, through the Congress that this administration have tried to gut, that's one way to do it. Most zoning laws are localized and from county, city, and state. It's more in their purview, but at the national level, you can put in things in place that deals with the environmental issue to help to restrict or at least let them come into conformity with environmental issues that could occur once they are looking to design them and put them in place.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on college loan debt forgiveness?
If you go to my webpage, wholenessforcongress.com, you'll see that I have a position on many of these issues we talked about. Yes, we should forgive those people who went to college and had to borrow money, and especially those who are making less than $100,000 per year. We can tear it up in terms of
$100,000 ain't that much in South Florida. They need loan forgiveness too. By the time you pay this rent and this insurance, you can't pay the student loans.
Listen to what I'm saying to you. $100,000 would be every person.
Okay.
As we go in higher wages, let's say we start off at 100%, 100,000. If you make 150, maybe it goes to 75%. 200,000 or more, it goes to. So there will be debt forgiveness for everyone, but it depends on we got to give it first to the people who need it the most. That's my belief. Yes, we got to give debt forgiveness. And if you work in the public sector, if you're a teacher, if you work in anywhere where you provide public service, it ought to be forgiven.
Yeah, because there are some of those programs that are there that this administration is attacking. That if you do nonprofit work, or you, like you said, work for the public school system or government or law enforcement or whatever, you can get a percentage of your loans taken away every year. But that program is under attack, under review, and it's stalled in the last couple of years, and there's been no decisions on those applications, no credits being put forth on people who had those applications pending when this administration came in. So I don't know if the John Lewis Voting Right Act is still something that will be that'll be pushed forward. Is that something you would put? What type of voting right acts would you push forward, or would you support to stop the Supreme Court from basically leaving it up to the states? The states that the reason why we have it is that they couldn't be trusted. Now you want to trust these states to do the right thing, right? And as soon as they gave them the ability to leave it up to them, then we got redistricting, and here we go, right? Now we dealing with this in 20, 24, 22, 20, all of these different areas. I got district out, and now I'm district 26 or something like that. So my area changed as a result of the rezoning based on the court saying leave it up to the states. What as a member of Congress would you support to not leave it up to the states that has shown that they cannot be trusted with this type of power?
The John Lewis Voting Rights Act absolutely must be passed. It will be beneficial to all Americans. And I say this often, the more Americans that participate in the political system, the more voices they are, the better nation we have. When you look at what the Republicans are trying to do, they're trying to suppress voter participation by putting all kind of rules and roadblocks in place. It doesn't make our democracy any better. The idea that there's fraud is nonsense. I sat on the canvassing board for the county election. So when you vote in Broward County, those ballots are overseen by three people: the supervisor of election, a county court judge, and a county commissioner or the mayor of the county. And we look at what comes in. If there's any discrepancy, it's reviewed. Two of the three must vote to say yeah or nay on a ballot that might be questionable. Mm-hmm. So there's no issue with us having any fraud in our system. And if there's any, it's so minute, doesn't really account to much anything. People might do something stupid or crazy, but it doesn't cause any results change. We must ensure that every American have a voice, and their voice is their vote, and they ought to have it unrestricted. When you look at what Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and so many others did, and some even lost their lives in the effort to have people have voting rights. Now listen, our country is a great country. There's no doubt about it. But you go back, women couldn't vote. Mm-hmm. Blacks couldn't vote. Now that we open it up, we're better for it. We're a better country for it. And we ought to be the example for the rest of the world.
You don't think that's why they mad, though? You don't think that's why they mad? I mean, black folks got the right to vote in 1965, and 45 years later, they got a black president, and then 60 years later, this black woman damn near almost became the president of the United States. Isn't that part of the reason why the people are mad? Is with only 60 years of voting, all of the progress that's been made by people of color. Isn't that part of the...
not only people of color. What we've done is put systems in place that lift more people out of poverty than before. We created an equal playing field for every American. We've invested more in opportunities for people to live to their fullest potential. And by doing so, we create productivity. We create a stronger economy. We create a better nation. So those who are regressive and fearful that by having broader participation is going to hurt them, they're wrong. And that's why you see some of those folks who voted for this crazy stuff to happen with this guy back in the presidency. Now they're having second thoughts. They're swinging away back from that craziness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully that energy of regret continues through November of this year, because that's going to be the true test, right? People will be like, my life hard, but they be like, I still can't bubble it in for this person, right? So it's really going to be a true test, because of course, besides all of the shenanigans that they're trying to do to really manipulate the vote, I think with all of that, it should still be unsuccessful, because people, if they look at their life from what it was in just 2024 to right now. I don't know who could say it's the same or who could say it's better. I mean, maybe the new trillionaire could say it's better, but the majority, and I'm not talking about no 50%, I'm talking 80-90% of Americans cannot say that their situation is better right now than it was in 2024. Just in terms of cost of living alone.
Well, listen, everybody is paying more for gas now than before.
For sure.
Everybody who drives a car is paying far more money, so it affects 100% of us in this country is paying more today, at least for gas, and for most other goods and services too. And he said he was gonna end inflation and bring prices down on day one.
Yeah, and now you can't even eat lettuce. Now you can't eat lettuce because he done fired all the ag people and there's some virus out there. You know what I mean? So these are the things that we really have to think about, is that, you gut an administration, you gut regulation, you don't have people to, and this is the consequence. You can't eat lettuce because you're going to get sick because they don't have the people that are in place that make sure that these things are okay, right? So think about that. And then the job loss and all of that has happened, especially for Black women, just people across the board that have lost their jobs since the administration has started. I know people who work for government that just decided to retire because they're like, listen, I can't be here. This is crazy work for the types of things that they're being asked to do. So, yeah. And I think the last thing I want to ask you, then I'll give you the floor. Do you think you have the ability to work across the aisle? We have elected officials that's been there over 20 years, and they say they got good Republican friends. I'm like, well, why you can't get your one good Republican friend to vote on something that's going to be beneficial for working class and middle class people? So do you think you have the ability to do that, and how would you do that?
Absolutely. So I can point to Broward County. I passed the additional homestead exemption for seniors, low-income seniors. I got them an additional $50,000 deduction on their property value so we can reduce their property taxes. And I had a Republican to support me on that, Chip Lamar. I went in and he co-sponsored it with $50,000. We got only $25,000 the first year just for low income. And then the next year I went back and said, look, I want more. We want to go to the $50,000 in homestead exemption. So we got the additional $25,000 for those who have lived in their homes for 25 years or longer and are low income. I mentioned to you earlier the Opportunity Zone Act that got bipartisan support. That's someplace that I think we can agree on getting support across the aisle for it. And let me tell you why I think that's possible. Because many of these opportunity zones are in urban areas and in rural areas where there's poverty and unemployment. And many of the Republicans have rural constituencies. Once their constituencies are educated as to the benefits they're going to receive, they can take on the mantle of making the phone calls. So it's not just going to be a nice guy. It's about educating people in those districts where we need to get the support from Republicans. And I'll do that. I'll reach out to the community directly if the Republican member won't support it. But we also need to look at, if they bring something, we ought not just say no because it came from a Republican. If they bring something and it's halfway decent, maybe you try to amend it to get it to where it benefits more people. We don't need to demonize each other. And I'm not saying they're good people because they've done some bad stuff. But there's some good people who got intimidated by this president to do stuff that's not good for the people. We must also work to build a majority in the House and the Senate. In our case, in the district I'm running for, District 20, it's a sure Democratic seat by close to 40% plus. District 22, where one of the other candidates should have run, where she lives, with $2.8 million, rather than come in and try to take the seat that Black folks have had for 34 years because there are 4 of us in it. She should have taken that $2.8 million and go run against a Republican over there that only had $600,000 and no name. And we could have won that seat because Biden won it by 3% in 2020, a woman right to her right or bodily function amendment 4
Mhm.
passed by 60%, 3% higher than the state. Sure, Trump won it by 10%, but I pointed out earlier that the state have
He's
moved away
losing his
from him by
popularity.
17%.
Yeah, he's
So,
losing his
so,
popularity.
so we could win that seat. It doesn't make sense to me that you would run here where we're certainly going to win when you had more money than any one of us in this seat. You should run where your leadership should tell you should run. And that's why the Speaker of the House didn't endorse her in that seat, in this seat, because it's not right. We need the people who have lived experience to be a part of the decision making. We need to have people from the diversity of our nation at the table so that we can create laws that benefits everyone. If
And
we have,
diversity doesn't always mean black. I want people to understand that. Every time they hear that word, they're like, oh, it's black. No, that means like class, that means education, that's experience, that's
Absolutely.
culture, that's
Absolutely.
all of that. That diversity is all of those things are important.
And the framers of our Constitution, though they were imperfect people, they didn't put restrictions in place that restricted people, even though it was just white men that were being elected.
But there were black people that were elected in Congress back then, and then the black folks in the South ain't like that, so they did the jelly beans in a jar and all that foolishness.
After the Emancipation Proclamation, yes.
Absolutely.
And then they destroyed it during Reconstruction.
Yes, yes.
And this seat was Florida was without any black representation for more than 117 years after having several blacks in the Congress from the state after blacks were given their freedom and their ability to vote. So we've got to look to see how we build a majority. And part of what I tell folks is this: come August 18, I win District 20 with your help and God's grace. My job will be to get that seat 22 on the Democratic side. The Republicans try to take that seat away from us with gerrymandering, but it can be won. And because the people have already said, we don't like what this administration is doing, we can convince them to bring us that seat and win it. But it's going to take work. And
they should have came in 26 too. They should have brought somebody in 26 also. I'm just saying.
We should have contested we should contest every single seat.
Every seat.
Put our best effort forward so that we can take the House, so that Hakeem Jeffries can become the Speaker of the House, and Democrats can push back on this administration. Right now, they're doing all they can with the little they got, okay, to make a difference. So you talk about the immigration TPS program. They forced a discharge bill, forcing the Republicans to vote on it. And they got some bipartisan support. Not a whole lot, but they got enough to force the vote and got it passed. Now the Senate need to pass it. And we have to push hard to make sure that occurs. And we can take the House.
I think the point you made about reaching out to corporations as opposed to just talking about the people that's impacted is going to make a difference. Because, how do you find all that labor in just a short amount of time, right? Because if these people if you got 300,000 people that are coming out of the labor market, how are you going to train up another 300,000 to not cause any disruption in all of those places, right? In the hospitals with Amazon, Purdue Farms, all of these places that hire a significant amount of immigrant folks, right? So you're losing a skill set, not only just the labor, you're losing a skill set that has experience.
Many American-born people are not going to go to work in those jobs.
They're not working in a chicken factory for Purdue.
Many won't. Some will because of their circumstances. They ain't gonna go get them lemons
in Belgrade, not in the sugar, not for Domino's sugar in Hendry County. They're not gonna do that.
Listen, their circumstances have to be. The circumstances have to be very, very bad for them to do that.
For them to do that,
because that's not happening right now.
They don't go roof. They're not working on the roof. They're not going to put that tar roof down, Dale.
When you look at that, who you see up there doing it now? Who you see out in Belgrade and in Henry County?
My house looked like an immigration raid when they were doing my roof. I was like, yo, if somebody called immigration, it's going to be a whole problem. But
Well, listen. Many of them actually have legal status.
No. They were No, they had legal status. They were not illegal. I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm not letting no immigrants work on my roof. I'm just not gonna do that. So no. They did all have lawful status, But that's all to say they just didn't look like, these Americans that be out here with they flags talking trash. Like ain't none of them was on my roof, And the owner of the company, may well have been a Trump supporter. I don't know, but all the people that was working for him were not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
and again, many have now realized that what they did with putting Trump in office was not in their best interest.
At all.
Not at all. Not in any way near being in their best interest. Again, I said earlier, we're a great country. We've come a long way. We've come a very, very long way. And it's not without some going back and forth, but somehow the American people find a way to make progress going forward.
Yeah, we're better than this. We're better than where we are right now. We're absolutely better than this. We're absolutely better than this.
We're much better than this.
Yeah, because and people, I'm not against Republicans. A Republican created the immigration law that allowed me to get lawful status in the United States. It was a law that Ronald Reagan passed.
Yes.
When Ronald Reagan was president, that passed that allowed me to now today being a citizen in the United States. So you're not gonna get me to say nothing about no Republican in that sense because I know what Republicans can do, right? Yeah. It's just that this brand of Republican is something else. But I don't even think that's about the party. That's more about the folks that have taken on the brand that are doing these things because it's not even consistent with what it is that they're about.
It's about Trump and the people who are called MAGA Republicans that have changed the tone of civility in our Congress, in our Senate, and across our country. Mm-hmm. It's not good for us as a nation. We're much better than that, as you stated. We're much, much better than that. And for us to utilize the diversity of our country, our cultures, is an important thing. Now, when the country was founded, that helped because though that diversity was, that control of power was mostly European, know that it opened markets for us to sell our cotton and our tobacco and our produce from here into those countries. Today, we can utilize that same diversity to sell to so many other countries, to open doors for us, to open markets for us. That's why I started Florida's International Trade and Cultural Expo, FITSE, that we started with less than 200 people and less than 20 countries. Now we have 70 countries and 5,000 people at the 10th anniversary last year. That's opening markets for us. China is outselling us, and yet they don't have the strength of our diversity or people being able to speak every language across the globe to be there to open doors, to make contact so that we can actually sell more of our goods and our services. And all the American people prosper as a result of it. It's a strength that we're not utilizing to the extent that we should.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for sharing your time. You get to have the last word. I'm just going to remind folks that it's too late to register to vote for the primaries. Ballots are out, so you can still request your vote by mail ballot. Primary elections are from August 3rd to August the 16th, where you can vote anywhere in the county. And then the last day to vote is August 18th, 2026. And then you have to actually vote at your precinct if you wait until August the 18th, 2026 to vote. So when you see that date, that's the last day you can vote. You can start voting now if you get your vote by mail ballot, or you can early vote between August 3rd and August the 16th. All right, Mr. Hollis, tell them people why they should vote for you.
So I think we've had a very robust conversation.
I agree.
We've covered a whole lot, and hopefully you heard me take the stance and the positions that will benefit us all. And it's not about Dale Holness, it's about all of us. I've dedicated myself to public service for most of my life, in elected office for 18 years, and have worked to be inclusive for the benefit of the people, putting policies in place that produces results that help to make prosperity for all. That's why I'm here. I'm pushing to ensure that in this wealthy country, great wealthy country, we have prosperity for all our people. We can do it. We must strive every day towards it. And that's what I'll do. If you need more information, you may go to my website, wholenessforcongress.com. HOLNESSFOR Congress.com. You may also be able to get your vote by mail ballot from that site. You can click on vote by mail and it'll take you straight to the supervisor of elections office where you can register, get a vote by mail ballot. There are other resources available there. You can go to a resource page and find things that might be able to help you. There's career source there. There's information for veterans and elderly people. There are family resources there. There's resources there for folks who may need help with immigration. I am here to serve you, not to serve me or to serve some wealthy donor, but to serve you. That's the dedication that I brought, and I promise you that I'll work harder for you than anyone else. I've done that in Broward County. In fact, they often call me, my own elected officials on the desk would say, the hardest working commissioner that there is. And I take that as a compliment. And the data that we could look at the county had more phone calls, more emails, more everything than anybody else. The fact is this: leadership requires us to serve, and I'm your public servant. Thank you so much, Sandra, for having me this afternoon. Thank you, audience, for listening. I'm not perfect, but I'll work hard for you and work harder for you than anybody else.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And have yourself a good night. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences.
Hey, y'all, Sandra Sheffran, host of Racing the Races. Go ahead, please subscribe to our YouTube channel called Racing the Races. Subscribe to our TikTok page, Racing the Races, and like us on Facebook and Instagram, Racing the Races. Go ahead, support the page. I'm tired of getting crazy comments from these white dude trolls that's mad. Like, why y'all mad in the comments now? So come on, y'all, those who are fans of the show, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, comment on the video. Tell us what it is what else you would like to see instead of me having to read all these trolling comments. But I see it as a compliment because I showed up in their feed and I really don't know who they are. And since they're not challenging the content is good. They want to make personal attacks, but that's okay. So I need y'all to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to TikTok. All of it is called Racing the Races, and go ahead and like us on Facebook and Instagram.